The show for today, the topic is Islam, politics, and terrorism, and we have as our guest Dr. LMadu3. Now, Dr. LMadu3, let's simply give you an opportunity to pick up where you left off during that second segment, because all of this information is so very, very revealing, leading to our involvement with Islam and with politics and terrorism. Go on, pick that up.
Yeah. And, one of the myths we have today, is that the Islamists, are the precursors of terrorism, in the world. But that's not true. The fact is that because of 9/11 and subsequent events, their own activities have been amplified. But if you go back a little bit to the 70s, 80s, 90s, there were a whole range of terrorist groups that are not Muslims, okay, that don't have any identification. For example, the individual who introduced airline hijacking was a man called Dr. Elias Wadi Haddad. He's a Christian, who lived in Mogadishu, belonged to the Palestinian group. He's a Christian. The leader of the most vicious Palestinian group at that time, the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, was Dr. George Habash. He's a medical doctor and a Christian. He's not a, listen, the Japanese Red Army, that attacked Israel in 1972 at Lod Airport, was led by a man called Kozo Okamoto from Japan. He's not a Muslim. You had the Italian Red Brigades that assassinated Prime Minister Aldo Moro. They are not Muslims. You have the Irish Republican Army that assassinated Lord Mountbatten. They are not Muslims. In Peru, you had the Sendero Luminoso, Shining Path. They are not Muslims. You have the Tupameros, guerrillas in Uruguay. They are not Muslims. You had the Monteneros in Argentina. They are not Muslims. And all these groups, were the precursors of terrorism all over the world. So most people don't know that, because at that time some of these groups were either urban, concentrated in one country, or the international activities weren't really that threatening to our governments to intervene, or we are using some of them. You've heard of Carlos Jaco, from Venezuela, who kidnapped, all the OPEC ministers in Vienna. He's not a Muslim. So this is very important to understand in the light of what is happening now. That we've had these groups, perpetuating terrorism all over the world, who are not Muslim affiliated or Muslim related. In fact, some of them were sponsored even by Western governments, to carry out their will. So one will ask, well, why do Muslims have to be, tagged as the only terrorists in the world? It's just because of the political dimensions of what is happening now, and it's because it's religious affiliated. Most of these terrorists that I've already mentioned are secular, what we call secular terrorists. The difference is that this is a religious terrorist, and of course, when someone gets on religion, all of us get very sensitive.
Very good.
And that's very, very critical here to differentiate the secular terrorists and the religious terrorists. So this is very important, because most of the religious terrorists use religion as a form of political expression. The secular terrorists have, a stated objective, which might not be political, but at the same time, have a goal, limited goal. So that's very important to understand and be able to differentiate. What should our policy be, towards, Islamic countries? I think the current policy being pursued, by our president is very sensitive. I do not think we should have a confrontational, attitude towards Islamic countries, because most of the Islamic countries are not against the United States. Yeah, we have good relations with most of them. Indonesia, for example, they receive a lot of money from us. We receive a lot of oil from Indonesia. Countries like Malaysia, they're not against us. Pakistan, even though you have all, Al-Qaeda and all this hiding there, we still, trade with them. We give them a lot of funding for their military and all this. Yeah, India, we have 160 million Muslims, like I said, in India. We are very friendly with India. We are cooperating with them on, a lot of their nuclear facilities and all this. And you name it. Before we fell out with Iran, you know, they were good friends of ours when the Shah was there. Yeah, when the Shah was there, they were good friends of ours. We were friends with Saddam Hussein before, you know, he turned, you know, against us. Egypt, the largest Muslim state in the Middle East, you know, in the Arab world, has been a very good friend of ours. They still receive almost $3, $4, $5 billion a year from us since, you know, the sign of the Camp David Agreement. Jordan, the king of Jordan is a very good friend of the United States. Even the King Hussein, who died, you know, was on the payroll of the CIA. You know, yeah. Kuwait, went to Kuwait to liberate Kuwait. It's a Muslim country.
Okay.
Yeah, Kuwait is a Muslim country. We have bases in Gaza. You know, that's where some of our biggest bases are that we invaded Iraq from. It's a Muslim country. Yeah. So we have good relations with a whole lot of these Muslim countries. So the policy being pursued now by the president, you know, is a sensible, you know, policy, you know, based on realities and dealing with the issues based on individual countries, not lumping all the countries together as if we are at war with Islam or it's a crusade like the Bush government was talking about, you know, yeah, the Christian crusade. And this is not what it is. It's not a Christian crusade against Muslims. You know, we are not crusaders. It's simply, you know, that you had some terrorists, you know, from a particular country, you know, that tried to destroy this country, you know, by way of bombing the World Trade Center. And even if you look at it logically, all the terrorists who did this came from Saudi Arabia. But yet, we are in the best of terms with the monarchy in Saudi Arabia. Okay? Our president just visited over there and met with the king and all this. So one should think about that. That's why a lot of people get confused. For the terrorists came from Saudi Arabia.